Trying to live a life outside of your dysfunctional family is one of the most difficult things you could possibly do. I'm sure you're dealing with a lot of thinking errors and cognitive distortions, which is what we're going to talk about in this video today, that really blocks your ability to feel confident and positive about reaching outside of your family and connecting with other people. That could be a coworker, it could be a boss, it could also be a romantic relationship, and it can also be a friend. It's really difficult to feel confident about yourself when you have come from a family that's really dysfunctional, toxic, and unhealthy. So in today's video, I'm going to focus on some of the cognitive distortions that you are likely experiencing, and I'm also going to point out a couple of theories that I'm sure you haven't heard of before. Let me briefly introduce myself. My name is Tamara, and I'm an internationally and board certified trauma therapist. I'm also licensed in mental health, and I specialize in treating children, teens, and families, as well as adults who are dealing with trauma. Let's jump in. All right, so this is actually a posted video because as of yesterday, I wanted to do a live stream at 8:15 p.m. Eastern time, and unfortunately, both YouTube live stream was down and my camera live stream equipment was down, so both systems were down. So in today's video, I'm going to highlight some things that I was going to highlight in that live chat and live video with you. I'm going to repost that live video advertisement so you guys can know when it's coming up, so we can talk face to face or face to face. I love engaging with you guys live, so I'm going to get that going for January. But for today's video, we're going to go ahead and just jump in about dysfunctional families and how to connect to outside people and outside sources. So, you know, I usually bring up on my channel a theory known as cognitive dissonance, and the way that I explain it is sometimes different from what you're likely to get if you just Googled cognitive dissonance. But basically the idea behind cognitive dissonance is that you have these uncomfortable internal feelings that are really self-defeating. They are negative, and a lot of times they are internalized feelings that really causes this internal tension that you can barely tolerate. And it's a tension between your thoughts and your feelings. You may be having one thought and yet you're feeling something totally different. And so that's cognitive dissonance. It's having a really hard time marrying your thoughts and your emotions on something because you're having this conflict on the inside. Now, an example of this could be something known as post-decisional cognitive dissonance or post-decisional dissonance. Here's what happens in your family. So, let's say you have a really triangulating family member, and, they really know how to triangulate and manipulate and get everybody's emotions going. They start screaming and yelling, and, they're really emotional in how they respond to things, really histrionic. And what I mean by that is theatrical and flamboyant and just really out there, loud. You can't miss them. So let's say you have a family member like that, and you do all you can, mental tricks, emotional reassurance, techniques, you go to your therapist, you talk to people, you get the emotions out that you have, right? When you're not with this family member, you do everything you can to control your own emotions, and yet this family member caused you to explode. You started yelling back at them, you slammed some doors, you started cursing, you really started getting very angry and very upset with this person in your family, and you walk away, you get in the car, slam the door, or you go to your home and close the door, you sit down and you think to yourself, why did I let that happen? Right? I know you've been there. Why did I let that happen? Or you might say something like, I feel like a complete idiot right now, right? Or you might say something like, I can't believe I just let him really push me to that level of anger, okay? That is post-decisional dissonance. It says, I'm having this internal tension and this internal conflict because I know that in my mind, I know I need to be differently with this family member because I know they manipulate. I know they triangulate. I know they do these things that really makes it difficult to communicate. I know that, but at the same time, in my heart, I just couldn't take what they were putting me through, so I reacted. And so you have post-decisional dissonance. It's this discomfort and this internal conflict because you know in your mind one thing and yet your heart has caused you to do another. Now, cognitive dissonance is the same idea, but it doesn't happen after the fact. It usually happens anytime. Cognitive dissonance of family is everything. Well, you know, you may look at your family and say, okay, family is everything, and yet at the same time, my uncle molested me, my cousin abused me, my sister stole my money, my father divorced my mother for no reason. I know family is everything, and yet my family is a big mess. And so what you might do is struggle with that on the inside. Your heart struggles, your mind struggles, and sometimes because you can't arrive at the correct answer, you might just drop one theory and really uphold the other. So an example of that would be family is everything versus my family is a complete mess. Well, you can't marry those two, right? Because they're oppositional. They're in opposition to each other, I could say. So what do you do to cope with that discomfort of those two oppositional theories? Well, you may drop the idea that family is everything and uphold the idea or accept the idea that family is not everything, which is something I talk about right up here in this video if you want to go check it out. You may also do the reverse. You may say, I'm going to uphold the idea that family is everything, and I'm going to drop the idea that my family is dysfunctional, and I'm going to do everything I can to make it work, even if I'm abused, even if I'm molested, even if I lose some things during the process. I'm going to drop the idea that family isn't everything, and I'm going to uphold the idea that family is everything and I can't live without them. And so then you set yourself up for failure. You kind of set yourself up for failure either way, but more so if you uphold the negative and drop the other. Okay, and that's kind of the idea of traumatic bonding as well. Traumatic bonding is really being conflicted about a family member that has abused you, and you see the good in them and yet you see the bad in them. Well, it's a little bit difficult to see both the good and the bad for most people, and especially if this person goes in and out of character a lot. 1 minute they're nice, 1 minute they're not. If they do that a lot, maybe through the day, through the week, throughout the years, the months, you know, you may find yourself really reject or drop the negative view of them and really uphold that they're a nice person. Yes, they yell at me. Yes, they beat me. Yes, they abuse me. Yes, they steal my money and they lied to me, but he's nice, she's nice, I love her, I love him. You know what I mean? So that can be cognitive dissonance as well, but it's also traumatic bonding. So what happens when you are stuck in this zone? Well, you may engage in something known as cognitive distortions. Now, let me draw this out for you, okay? Because I think sometimes it's good to have a visual. So I'm going to draw a box, and that box looks just like this, okay? Just a plain box. I'm going to put in the middle of this box cognitive dissonance, okay? And I bet you I spelled that all wrong. I bet I did. I make so many mistakes in these videos, guys. So cognitive dissonance, okay? So I'm going to put on the left side, the right side, I'm going to put family is everything, okay? So that may be one theory that you have. On the other side of that, the other theory may be my family has abused me, okay? And on the other side of the coin, you may say my cousin raised me, right? So you may feel indebted to them in some way. And then on the flip side of that coin, they also used me. Okay, so let me show you this, and I'm going to use colors to kind of help you see what I'm doing here. So here's what I have so far, guys, okay? So cognitive dissonance is in the middle, and there's your conflict on the, let me see if I can multitask, guys. On this side, you're saying all the good things, and on this side, not so much, right? So on the left side, my family is everything, okay? My cousin raised me, so I owe them. But on the right side of that, or on the flip side of the coin, you may be saying, but my family has abused me, and my cousin really wasn't all that good. He abused me, or she abused me as well. Okay, so there's your conflict. So what do you think you might do? Well, if you decide to give in to cognitive dissonance, right, and struggle with these four corners or these four different ways that you could see this, then you are likely to drop the negative, right? Depends on, how you want to see it, how you need to see it, and you're likely to uphold the positive side of that. When you're experiencing cognitive dissonance in relation to a family system, you may have all these views on one side of the coin that's positive and all these negative views on the other side of the coin that is not. And so it's kind of like heads or tails, which one do I choose? And some people decide to let go of the negative and they hold on to the good. So what does this cognitive dissonance do to your mind when you're stuck and you don't know which side to choose, right? What side of the coin do I really believe? Well, you go through what's known as cognitive distortions, and I'm going to give you a few, and I'm going to list the definitions in the description box for you just to kind of help with managing time. The first cognitive distortion that you're likely to experience is something known as polarized or dichotomous thinking. Polarized or dichotomous thinking. What happens here is it's really hard for you to accept the gray. So instead of looking at all the possibilities and all the different sides and all the different angles and viewpoints of that particular situation, you tend to choose one or the other. Okay, you either go far left or go far right. There's no in between. So that is dichotomous thinking and polarized thinking. An example of this may be, family isn't everything, and instead of keeping in mind that you could develop a wonderful family over time, you just completely slam the door and say, you know what, I'm out of here. Or another way to look at that is your family didn't work out. Your family was abusive. Your family was evil. Your family was mean to you. They were hurtful. So I'm not going to be interested in a relationship because he's going to probably want children or she's going to probably want children. And I don't like family. That is having a very polarized, dichotomous view of things, as opposed to looking at the gray, which is, what if I get with somebody who's really wonderful and we have a beautiful family? We can start from scratch. We can start over. The next thing is over-generalization, okay? Just because your family didn't work out doesn't mean everybody else's family is going to fail. Or just because your family didn't work out last year doesn't mean that there isn't any room for forgiveness. So you want to make sure that you're not over-generalizing, right? You also want to make sure that you're not taking your failed family situations and passing on your negative views to your own children or to other family members because it didn't work out for you. The next thing is fortune telling. Fortune telling. It sounds kind of silly, but it is a clinical term. Fortune telling. It's like, I'm going to perceive and foresee that a situation is going to turn out a certain way, so I'm just going to stay away from this, You may do that with Christmas coming up. You may be doing that with New Year's coming up. I know my family, they never can get along for Christmas. This is going to be a horrible year. I'm not going to their party. I'm not going to Christmas celebration with the family, right? So it's fortune telling. You're kind of predicting what's going to happen when in reality, you really may not have that right, because if certain family members don't show up or don't come or they're not invited, you may actually enjoy yourself. Or maybe your family has grown in some ways and there's some hope. So you just want to ask yourself to be on the safe side. Am I being fair here? The next cognitive distortion is emotional reasoning. You're not using this to reason. You're using this. And sometimes that's not good. You're using this. That's not good. Because sometimes your heart can be telling you something that's just way off because of anxiety, because of fear, because of the mood you're in, because of depression, because of something someone told you that may or may not be true. There's a lot of variables. And so when you reason with your heart as opposed to your mind, it can sometimes throw you off and make things worse than they really are. So an example of this would be, I'm sad. I've had a death in my family. I don't want to deal with this. That's emotional reasoning. You're allowing your emotions to reason things for you, as opposed to giving yourself the out or the space to have some different kind of reaction. So emotional reasoning, just be mindful of that. Am I using this or am I using this? Catastrophizing, that's another one that we tend to fall into. We take something that's this big and we just exaggerate it. And some family members do that when they are triangulating. Some families do that when they are trying to manipulate the family line or manipulate the family dynamic. But sometimes we catastrophize catastrophize out of anxiety, out of anger, out of just being in an irritable mood, you know? And so sometimes we have to be mindful. We have to ask ourselves, we have to pump the brakes and ask ourselves, you know, do I really want to catastrophize this? And maybe I am, and maybe I'm not, I don't know. But I need to check with myself and make sure that I'm not catastrophizing and making it bigger than it actually is. And the last cognitive distortion is negative mental filtering. You have a situation where, yes, there's some negative at home with your family or in your family, but there's also some good. So yes, your family may be a wreck, but you came from that family and you're the positive thing that has come from that family. So negative mental filtering says, I'm going to filter out all the good stuff and I'm going to just zone in on the negative. So you want to be mindful of that as well. Thank you so much for being with me in today's video, guys. I encourage you to give it a thumbs up and go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you want to stick around with us. I'm going to continue talking about this, guys. This is the last video that I'm going to post, you know, that I've intentionally done for this particular day until after Christmas, because I'm going to be posting some videos that I've recorded specifically for you. I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.